everyone, it's Dan Gingiss, and welcome again to the Experience Maker Live show. So happy to have you here today. As you know, I'm a customer experience speaker and coach, and every week I bring a new expert to the show to share their knowledge and to help us all learn and grow in the world of customer experience and employee experience. Today is no different, and I am very excited to introduce you all to the CEO of the Digital Growth Institute and the best-selling author of Banking on Digital Growth. Please welcome to the show my friend and a guy who shares a barber with me, James Robert Lay. How are you, sir?
I am doing tremendous, Dan. It is so good to share time with you as well as a barber. You're looking great, man.
Oh, looking fantastic. I'm telling you, bald is beautiful, and we're both just shining today, so it's good.
Yes, we are. Yes, we are.
So tell the audience a little bit about you, and I know that you kind of have a little niche within a niche in customer experience. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so at the Digital Growth Institute, we are simplifying digital marketing and sales strategies to help banks, credit unions, fintechs maximize their growth potential. And we do that through really three ways: training, coaching, and then continuous publication of insights from the research that we're doing in the market.
Outstanding. And what brought you to the banking FinServ industry?
It's a great question. It was a dark and stormy night, and this is a true story. I started the business 20 years ago as a sophomore in college. My last real job, quote unquote, was playing in a punk rock band. And we were in college. There was a girl who was studying with me in the library one night, and she said, you're not very good at your band. Why don't you do something with your life? And now I'm bald. Back in the day, I even had Liberty spikes, believe it or not. And so I wanted to impress this girl, and I started a web design company. This was at the early days of the internet, 2002, February 11th. And so dark, stormy night, I'm at the university. It was a career fair. And Thomas Hast, who was the VP of marketing for JSC Credit Union, walks in and he says, "We're looking to get our website redesigned, redeveloped. Do you think you could help us out with this?" And I said, "Absolutely." And I had no idea what a credit union was. I was just a college kid, but I saw the potential. I saw the power of the future of the internet, how technology can be used to bring people together, how technology can be used to deploy experiences that help people move beyond financial stress towards a bigger, better, brighter future. So that was my foray into this space.
I love it. It's so great when people end up in a space that was not planned at all, right? You just sort of you fell into it, and yet it's turned out to be a magnificent career. So I'm interested. I did a keynote and a workshop yesterday for a financial services company, and one of the things that I like to talk about when I talk to banks and other FinServs is that if you want to find inspiration in terms of customer experience, generally the last place you should look is other banks, because that's going to be tough to find inspiration. So two-part question. One is, if you're willing to name names, what are some brands out there, some financial services brands that you think are doing a really great job in terms of experience? And then also, I'm interested in your perspective. The second part of what I often say when I say don't look for inspiration to another bank is to look outside the industry for inspiration and then try to figure out how to bring that back into the industry. And I'm just wondering how you think that plays. So take it away on either or both questions.
Let's start with the first one and just kind of break this down piece by piece, bite by bite. Looking in the industry, I think American Express leads the way from an experience standpoint, even down to the verbiage of their language. It's about membership. And, it's funny because working with banks, working with credit unions often talk about membership as well. but it's not always fully realized or deliver what that actually means. But it's through the American Express experience, membership has a lot more quote unquote tangible value. For example, I'm hopping on a plane tonight back in the real world, and I'm looking forward to going to the Amex lounge at the airport in Houston and then flying back to Miami tomorrow. Going to hit the Amex lounge there because they've taken the intangible of, say, a credit card or just financial services, and they begin to make it tangible in ways that aren't obvious. But what they're doing, and I think it's the answer to the second question, they are looking outside the industry. In fact, I do have a keynote called Look Outside to Grow Inside, because we can find a lot of inspiration. And it doesn't matter if you're in banking or healthcare or education. Any vertical can look outside of their industry for inspiration to take new ideas and apply it through a new lens. And so looking outside, in my mind, this whole idea of the Amex Lounge experience, think 5-star hotel, Four Seasons to me leads the way in that. My wife and I have stayed at multiple Four Seasons around the world, and we keep going back because of the experience. Izzy Sharp, has written prolifically and said it best, founder of Four Seasons. We need to systematize the predictable so that we can humanize the exceptional. And I have stories and stories about just Four Seasons experiences of where they have done just that.
Yeah, both great brands. I would point out they're both, I would call them high-end brands, which I think is really interesting. Amex, it's funny, I worked at Discover for almost 10 years, and one of my proudest moments was the year that Discover finally won the J.D. Power Award for customer satisfaction, dethroning Amex for the first time in 7 years. But, Amex is a company that I certainly looked up to when I was at Discover. And I think you rarely, if ever, find a Amex card member saying, yeah, I don't really like Amex.
Right.
I mean, it's just not, you don't get that, right? Similar with Four Seasons. There's dozens of stories of great experiences. You almost never hear anyone say, let me tell you about that terrible experience I had at a Four Seasons, right? So I think that predictability is really interesting. And I love that you point out on the lounges that on the surface, a lounge doesn't sound like something that is related to credit cards. And that's actually what makes it exceptional. And I think that, one of the things I was talking about with this client yesterday, and I recently blogged about this, that, Amazon, as it was in the news, just raised the price of Prime again.
Yes.
And, they started this at $79. It's now up to $139. And my argument in the blog post was that no one really cares, because the value of Amazon Prime has just continued to improve. And we all sort of know that really no matter what they charge us, we're getting so much value out of it. It's all good. With your typical credit card, I would say your non-Amex credit card that you pay an annual fee for, it's the opposite. They're taking away benefits. They're not adding benefits.
Right.
And you ask yourself every year, why am I paying for this thing, right? I think Amex has figured out that nice balance where every time your annual fee comes up, you say, yep, and I went to the lounge in Houston, and I went to the lounge in Miami, and I enjoyed myself here, and they took care of me here. And so you're willing to pay that because there's an exchange of value.
There's an exchange of value, and also what they're doing is they're making deposits into a consumer's trust fund that sits between their ears. And it might be this lounge experience. It might be the $200 airline credit. There's all of these additional benefits that whenever the fee comes up, I'm like, take my money, because I know the value that I'm going to receive on the other side. I mean, I even just got an alert from them the other day that I'm able to bring a guest in now for no extra fee. And my wife and I, we have some travel coming up. And so it's something to look forward to, because it takes the complexity, the annoyance, the frustration of travel, which hasn't gotten any easier over the past couple of years, but it's just like, it's almost like an oasis in an airport. And I think that's an opportunity for many brands today, financial services or not, is to create oases in seas of chaos, in seas of complexity, to give people a peace of mind that, you know what, life is tough, but just for this moment, we're going to take care of you. We're going to make it easy. We're going to let you escape all of that. We've got your back.
Yeah, I love that. And just think about the emotions that are involved in what you just said, right? There's this safety, there's this feeling that someone has your back, there's this moment of pleasure or relaxation. And all the time you're thinking about Amex. I mean, whether you're thinking, specifically, or it's just sort of in the back of your head, you understand that when you're sitting in that lounge enjoying yourself, it's because of Amex.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the takeaway, is that, look, you may not be a high-end brand, and that's fine. But we've got to look at this exchange of value. We've got to look at if we're asking customers to pay for something, what are we doing back? The former CMO of Discover, my boss for a lot of years, used to say loyalty goes both ways. And I think that is so smart, right? That it is a two-way street. And so we often ask our customers to be loyal to us, but what are we doing as companies to be loyal back to them? And that's how you get people to stick around and to want to do business with you and to tell other people. I mean, heck, this is basically a sponsored segment for Amex at this point.
It's interesting that we're talking through this, and I love it's not planned. Like, this is just the way that the conversation has naturally, organically unfolded. And I think what it boils down to is this: it's micro moments that matter. It's really looking at the entire experience, breaking it down piece by piece, bite by bite, into these little micro moments, and making these positive emotional deposits into a person's mind. Because the more goodwill that you build up, because there's the acquisition side of this, but then there's also the retention side as well. And I was just talking with a credit union the other day out of the Colorado area, and they were sharing with me some of the challenges around retention. And, when you start peeling the layers of the onion back, it was definitely an experience issue. And I think as we go more digital in banking, as we go more digital in many verticals for that matter, we have to be cognizant of the fact that digital is only one part of the equation. In banking on digital growth, I wrote about a formulaic approach where DX, the digital experience, plus HX, the human experience, that equals growth. It's not just digital alone or human alone. It's combining the best of both worlds here to fulfill that growth. But I have to admit to you, Dan, 2 years, post-COVID, the COVID experience, as I have called it, because we have used this as a learning opportunity to get even better. I was wrong with this formulaic approach that I wrote, DX plus HX equals growth, because I missed a key element that, when I started writing this back in the May of 2019, and if I was to rewrite this today, the formulaic approach to growth would be EX plus HX multiplied by DX equals growth, where a positive employee experience that leads to and yields a positive human experience can be exponentially multiplied through a positive digital experience.
Okay, so I'm going to see if I got this right here. Let's put this on the screen. We got EX plus HX times DX. I love it. I think that is really smart. And look, the human experience, there's the humans that are providing the experience, that's your employees, and there's the humans that are receiving the experience, that's your customers. And that H in the middle is really what creates the connective tissue, is that we're all humans.
Yes.
And I will say, I think you're kind of saying this, I think the pandemic brought that to the forefront,
yes,
especially when we went through a period of time where we couldn't be around other humans other than our families or whoever we live with. And so this desire for human connection got even stronger. And so I love it. I do want to make sure that while we're here, I can share your book. And it is still a fantastic work, even though it was pre-pandemic. But Banking on Digital Growth: A Strategic Marketing Manifesto to Transform Financial Brands. Tell us a little bit about it, James.
So it is a 12-step approach broken down into 3 sections when it comes to building, crafting experiences that guide people beyond financial stress towards a bigger, better, brighter future. Because at the end of the day, we all want 3 things. We want to feel healthy, we want to feel wealthy, and it doesn't mean to be a bazillionaire. We just don't want to have to worry about money, and we want to feel happy. And from the research that we've done, when a person feels financial stress, and around 85% of Americans feel that today, that takes a toll on their physical well-being. It takes a toll on their mental well-being. And the opportunity is to transform banking for good. And the way to do that is to put the transformation of people beyond the commoditized transaction of dollars and cents. And that all comes back to this idea of experience. And the way that I define experience in the book, experiences are well-defined systems and processes that have been, number 1, strategically thought out, number 2, applied, and then number 3, particularly through the lens of digital experience, continuously optimized over time, resulting in either a positive or a negative emotion.
Yeah, I think that point about emotions is so spot on, and especially in financial services, you don't think of it as an emotional industry. And yet, when you're talking about people's money, other than maybe their family or their pets, it's hard to get more emotion than that, right? And so I had another client I was working with that was a micro lender, and they were, making these $1,000 loans to small businesses. And one of the things I kind of figured out by talking to them is that they had really no idea about what these small business owners were going through. And I said, look, every small business owner that is taking your $1,000 loan, they've got a story. They've got emotions. They're pouring their heart and soul into their business. Let's tell their stories. And we can add a human element to what is, again, I mean, I don't mean to be flippant, but, I always use the word when I talk a lot about experience, I always like to say refuse to be boring. And let's face it, people think financial services is boring. I mean, it's just, it has that reputation, but it doesn't have to be. And interestingly, so much of what FinServ does is it helps to make these stories, these human stories, a reality. Whether it's a home loan, or whether it's saving up for a vacation, or whether it's a business, business support. That's what the financial services industry does for people. But there seems to still be something missing in terms of a willingness to kind of, I don't know, maybe remove some of the formality of the industry. Thoughts?
Well, yeah, I want to take this in 2 different ways. I want to address the why this is a challenge, and then give another example of a brand who has really leaned into the emotive side of banking. The why into the challenge is what I diagnose as the banker's brain. The banker's brain is a very smart, analytical brain. We'll call it the left brain, if you will, but it has a hard time with empathy. It has a hard time with emotion, and that's okay to a degree. We want smart, analytical, left brain thinkers handling people's money. But the conflict lies in the brain here, because then on the other side, we have the consumer's brain. We'll call it the right side, the emotive brain, and people buy with their heart. We know that they make emotive decisions. And money is an emotional subject matter, even to the point to where couples find it easier to talk about sex than they do to talk about money. And so I think the more that we can lean in as an industry and really facilitate what are otherwise difficult conversations. Right now, we're having to have the sex talk with our kid as he's hitting that age. But it's like we've been talking about money now as a family with our kids so that it's just part of the learning experience. And who has done a fantastic job with this has been SunTrust, which is now Truist through the merger with BB&T. But if we roll back the clock, I want to say it was probably 2014, 2015. It was during the Super Bowl. SunTrust released an amazing commercial that tapped into the emotional side of money. And it started like this: hold your breath, hold it, hold it. This is what financial stress feels like for millions of Americans. And so they were able to help someone feel, and they poked on the pain of financial stress. But then it's like, we have a solution. We have a path forward. And it was the launch of a program called On Up. And On Up helped to guide millions and millions of Americans towards financial confidence. Because if you look at this idea, there's two sides to every coin. There is, I feel really clear and confident about my financial situation, or I feel confused, frustrated, and overwhelmed. And I think when it comes to experiences, particularly within FinServe, banks, credit unions, fintech, we must remember there is an inherent cognitive strain, cognitive stress, complexity already built in with money. There's an inherent cognitive load.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. When you started talking and you were talking about banker's brain and sort of the language that bankers use, it reminded me of a story that I told in my book, The Experience Maker, that was actually a story that someone else told. There is a VP at Forrester named Dipanjan Chatterjee, and he posted on LinkedIn an ad that his daughter got in an email. And the subject line of the email was earn 0% APY with an IRA CD.
Oh my gosh, acronym hell.
Yes. And she wrote to her, she forwarded it to her dad, this VP at Forrester, with one question: is this even English? Question mark. And he went on to say, that's my daughter's reaction after being messaged by her bank. She's old enough to be somewhat curious, but young enough to be utterly befuddled. The financial services category is in dire need of a lesson in communication relevance. Often providing a better brand experience doesn't take a lot of money, tech, or people. It takes common sense.
It really does. That's what I diagnose as banker knees. Banker knees is the common language that financial brand leaders speak within the industry. And it's the curse of knowledge. It's like, we know all of this stuff. And we know all of this stuff because we've been doing it for 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years. But if we go outside, that's where the confusion and the complexity comes from. We need to speak in the language that other people know, other people understand. And one of the best ways to do that is through story. It is through narrative. And it's not even us telling those stories. It's really facilitating a platform to tell the stories of others that we've helped guide on their own financial journeys. Lonnie Meeborg at Fortify Bank out of Wisconsin has done a fantastic job doing this, facilitating these stories through a program that is really around empowering the small and local business. And so this bank has helped to tell the stories of the local businesses that they have guided on their own journeys. And it's through these stories that the bank just takes a very small, minor role in the narrative structure. They don't try to take the role of the hero. they play the role, and really the more important role, of the helpful and empathetic guide.
I love it. And that's exactly the role that it should play, having the person's back, being there when they need them. When we hit a pandemic, being there when the chips are down. That's when we turn to the companies that we want to trust, that are going to be there for us. And I think that's really the huge opportunity. We're running out of time, but I want to ask you one last question, because you wrote a whole book on digital growth. I am starting to become of the opinion that we need to stop using the term digital transformation, because if you have not transformed yet to digital, you are now about a decade behind. So what do you think is the replacement term to make sure that, digital obviously is, especially in financial services, is often the experience. Digital experience and customer experience have become one, but it's not a transformation anymore, is it?
No, digital transformation, I would say, is really a word to start staying away from, because if we look at the research, 60 to 85% of all digital transformation initiatives have either failed or they've fallen short of what the expectation was. I think really, if we want to flip this on its head, I'm more interested in human transformation, empowering people to realize their full potential through the use of technology, through the use of AI, through the use of automation. And it really is human transformation. Digital is nothing more than a tool to help us achieve that.
I love it. Human transformation. Thank you, Chris, for your comments on TD Bank and other. We always appreciate you being here. James, how can people get a hold of you?
2 ways. LinkedIn. Just Google James Robert Lay, 2 first names. Thanks, Mom, for that. James Robert Lay. Or send me an email direct, jrwlay@digitalgrowth.com.
And if you want to learn more about Digital Growth Institute, they are at digitalgrowth.com as well. James, super conversation. Always great to chat with you. Love what you're doing. Love your haircut. Love everything about you. Have a great trip,
you too, man.
And enjoy the MX Lounge. And we'll talk to you soon.
Dan, thanks so much. Always great getting to share time with you.
All right. Take care.
Be well, do good.
Thank you again for being here as well. I want to introduce you to next week's guest. Very excited to have the president of Callzilla, an outsourced call center that has won dozens of quality awards. Neil Toth, good friend, and really interesting area. I mean, contact centers have been absolutely deluged in the pandemic, and so they've been quite busy and innovating as well. So we'll have Neil on next week. Again, we're here every week at noon Eastern on Thursdays, the Experience Maker Live Show. If you've enjoyed the program, please share it with friends, family, coworkers, nieces and nephews, whoever else you think might be interested in joining us. We'd love to have them. Thank you so much for being here. I'm Dan Gingiss, the Experience Maker. We will see you next week.